right, welcome back. We are here with our dear friend, Dr. Mark Hyman, and he's very excited about changing the world.
Audacious.
That's one of the reasons we love him.
Good.
And let's talk about what people can do individually to begin to get this country going in the right direction rather than the wrong direction, which we're clearly headed in now.
Yeah, I think awareness is really important in education. And I can tell you that even someone like me and even you guys, a lot of this stuff is shocking and was new for me. The way in which our food system is broken, the way in which it's contributing to so many of our issues of health and economic woes, climate change, and lots more. And I think, becoming aware of how these are connected is important. So my book is a great resource, Food Fix, but I think there's a lot of other great things you can learn from. So being educated is really important. And then the second piece is think about what you can do as an individual to change your habits, your diet, your choices, your things. And we talked about this on the last segment, which is, things like learning about regenerative agriculture and how do you buy more foods that are going to be adding to the solution instead of harming the planet and harming health. How do you become more politically active? How do you become active in your local community organizations, churches, schools, workplaces, etc.? How do you start a compost pile, a community garden? These are all things you can do. But I also think that people have to understand that this is going to take time, but your voice really matters, and you can do something about it. And that we think an individual doesn't really matter, but my friend Vani Hari, who's a sort of a food activist, sort of got up in arms about all the chemicals in our food and, how Starbucks caramel matcha latte or whatever has some toxic caramel, carcinogen, and she outed them. And she basically shames these big companies into changing, and they change.
That's so funny.
So use your voice. And then we have some tips here. Avoid anything with ingredients that are difficult to pronounce.
Yeah.
Anything that didn't exist in your grandmother's day, maybe even your great-grandmother's day, depending on how old you are.
Yeah.
Avoid anything containing soybean oil. Americans now get almost 10% of their calories from refined soybean oil, which is one of the most abundant sources of the pro-inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids.
Yeah, I mean, you guys focus on the brain, but work by scientists at the NIH showed that, and these are correlation studies, but that as this oil consumption went up, like 1,000% of the refined oils, and the omega-3s went down, the ratio got worse, that there was increased violence, homicide, and suicide as a result of these increasing in refined oils in our diet. So there's a lot of things you can do as individuals, and I think it's important for people even to get politically involved a little bit. Vote for the right people, get out there and talk about these things and learn and educate yourself.
And people are at different levels of their education with food and their journey with food. And I mean, for some people, it's going to be cleaning out their pantry and working on themselves. For some people, maybe the next step is getting your house healthy. For some people, maybe the next step is going to your school and working on the school or your place of work. And I mean, it feels like you could just grow this bigger, but it starts with you. I mean, that's what it seems like to me, is it's got to start with you until it feels comfortable to move to that next level when you understand it well enough.
Yeah,
because it feels overwhelming otherwise.
But it starts with you, and then it's your circle wherever you go. I mean, just getting your church to do the Daniel Plan is something that both you and I have had lots of people. I actually get recognized more for the Daniel Plan than public television. It's like, oh, Dr. Amen, I love you. I love Dr. Hyman. Our church did the program. It was so grateful. So start wherever you are.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, when you eat better, your relationships will be better. People will actually like you more. Your skin will be better.
Energy.
You'll smile more, and so on. One of our biggest blogs recently, it just blew up and went viral, was on red dye number 40.
Really?
Which it just went pop for who knows what reason. I have a scan on and off red dye number 40, and it just caused these explosions of inflammation in the brain. Talk a little bit about food additives, food colors, food preservatives.
Sure. So, the FDA's job is to sort of regulate the safety of our food. And they developed a certifications called GRAS, they're generally recognized as safe. But a lot of things are grandfathered in. And most of those things is, 10,000 chemicals in our food. Very few of them have been actually tested for safety. And the way the government works is until it's proven to be harmful, it's allowed in the food, whether it was trans fats or glyphosate or whatever. And in many other countries, they're much more rigorous about this. So the FDA allows so many things in our food supply that are banned in other countries, like azodicarbonamide, which is yoga mat material that Vani Hari outed in Subway, the Subway bread.
Yep.
And so, for example, it's still in Singapore, if you use it as a food menu, you get a $450,000 fine and 15 years in jail for using this food additive. And we allow BHT and BHA and BPA and all these noxious chemicals that have been shown to cause harm in humans and animals. And the government just lets them slide, partly because the food industry is so powerful. I mean, we knew for decades that trans fats were killing people and that they didn't change the law.
So why would the scientists at the FDA not be like the commissions in Europe that ban way more? I mean, it seems like unless you've proven it to be safe, you shouldn't have it in the food. But it seems like we're backwards. Unless you prove it's dangerous, you don't.
Right. We don't follow the precautionary principle. Right. And what's fascinating is that there was so much lobbying against this that there were over 100 petitions there was something called the Ban Poisonous Additives Act of 2009, which would have ended BPA in children's food and drink containers. It's a synthetic hormone that mimics estrogen. It's been linked to cancer, obesity. And the food industry would sort of screw them up if they did this. But the American Beverage Association filed 80 different lobbying reports related to 24 bills in Congress. And the one it influenced most was the BPA, the Ban Poisonous Additives Act. And it failed. I mean, the act didn't get passed, and our children and our communities are not being protected. So when you think about that amount of money, I mean, it's huge. You've got, just in 2015, there were literally probably 100 plus food companies that spent $200 million, about $192 million, almost $200 million, lobbying against the GMO Labeling Act, which is why we don't have national labeling. In fact, it was so bad that Vermont and a few other states had mandatory labeling. The federal bill overruled those states, and now they don't have to have mandatory labeling. And it's because they spent $200 million in 1 year. I mean, how do you fight that,
Crazy.
Well, you fight it. I mean, you have to go up against these people. Otherwise, I don't know if this is your experience. I bet it is. I have never, in my 40 years of clinical practice, seen the low levels of testosterone in young boys, in young teenagers, and in adult males. And I think it's all the hormone disruptors that are in our food and in the personal products people are putting on their bodies, that you have to read the labels and get rid of that stuff, or you're not going to have the energy. Because testosterone is not just involved in sex, it's involved in memory and mood and motivation. And when it's low, people get depressed. And almost all of my NFL players, we've done 300 NFL players now, have low testosterone. And it's like, well, how's that possible? These giant, virile...
belly fat, though, right?
Yep.
It's just
because after they stop playing, especially...
Well, it's that, but I think it's also the toxins in the food.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to stop. But Food Fix is Dr. Mark Hyman's new book. He has many books that I just love. He also has a new special on public television. Check your local listings. I can't tell you, Mark, how grateful we are.
Thank you for
to
being
be
my
your
mentor
friends and
Sure.
the good you're doing in the world.
Yeah.
We admire you greatly.
Thank you. People can go to foodfixbook.com. They can get a free action guide on there. They can get a free video on 5 steps to healthier you and a planet. There's a whole great bonuses and stuff for the book. So people can go to foodfixbook.com and learn more about it.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent.
Great.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
my
guys.
friend. All right. Take care.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're considering coming to Amen Clinics or trying some of the brain healthy supplements from BrainMD, you can use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com or a 10% discount on all supplements at brainmdhealth.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.